Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the podcast and YouTube show, None of Our Businesses, where we talk about news in business, tax, accounting, any and all of the above from an accountant's perspective. Well, not just one accountant, three accountants' perspective. I'm Ty Carr, and with me today is Jack DiMatteo.
Welcome.
And Charlie Zigmund.
Thanks for joining.
Well, this week we've got the Delta Special. We're going to be talking about unvaccinated people could be ineligible for unemployment benefits. Taco Bell short on ingredients. Companies scrapping their return to normalcy, to plans of being normal. And finally, the brainless blob that was sent into space. All right, guys, let's get this going. I'll turn it over here to Jack.
Okay, we've got an article here from CNBC. The unvaccinated might not be able to get jobless benefits if that's the reason they lost their employment. So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention in the news lately, but it seems like every day a new article comes out talking about what the penalties could be for unvaccinated. I think it goes a step further. I believe Disney and Walmart, some levels of management, or depending on what the position is, are mandating getting the vaccination. And then, like I say, according to this article, if a company mandates that you get the vaccination and you don't get it, and you go to apply for unemployment benefits, there's a high probability that you won't get them. So I don't know about you guys, but I kind of sit there as a fly on the wall, and I'm what I have not seen is the articles with any class action lawsuits on this. And, you know, they'll tell you HIPAA, everything's a HIPAA violation. Technically, theoretically, from what I've heard, nobody should be able to ask you whether or not you're vaccinated, let alone prove you're vaccinated. The fact that they seem to be able to do this and pierce that veil of HIPAA seems to be, ripe for a class action lawsuit. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen articles on that. Kind of want to get your take on what do you guys think of this article?
Yeah, I think it is I've been watching it slowly trickle. It's been slowly trickling in, right? First, some federal government agencies and places saying, "Oh, we're gonna require people to have vaccines, or they're not going to be able to work here." And so, yeah, I think at first it seemed like nobody was going to say you have to have a vaccine for your employment, or there was not going to be any particular employment related penalties related to not having vaccines. And now it feels like it's been trickling it down on us over the last month and a half or so of various announcements of different organizations kind of saying, actually, no, we're going to mandate the vaccines. And so this part of it is like a double whammy, right? So you get, you lose your job because you aren't compliant with with having the vaccine, and then on top of that, you don't qualify for unemployment benefits. That's way to be argumentative, controversial, and political over the whole thing, right? I mean, it's like just to make it even more controversial, we got to throw you don't get your unemployment benefits on top of it, right? I wish that we didn't go there, but
and that's if you don't get coronavirus, which is the whole issue in the first place. I mean, the only thing that I think I'm with you guys 100%. The only kind of devil's advocate point I guess I want to kind of think about out loud here is I remember feeling kind of outraged when I first heard a case about a company who had a policy that said they were going to fire anybody who smoked cigarettes, and basically that they weren't allowed to work there. And it was this controversial thing because it's like it seems like a strange thing for a company to be forcing their beliefs about what you should be doing with your own health onto the employees. But, on the flip side, it's a lot of states are governed by this employment at will doctrine, where essentially if you're not a protected class and if you're being laid off for something that isn't a protected class, like age, race, religion, things like that, then it sets the groundwork for the employer to be able to choose. And then the unemployment becomes just an extension of that. So I do think it doesn't seem good to me that a bunch of people who got laid off due to not getting vaccinated would then also not get unemployment. But at the same time, I can kind of see what dominoes had to fall into place in order for that to happen. And so ultimately, I think that, I don't think it's a good idea to strip unemployment benefits from people who are unemployed and not vaccinated. So for that reason, I'm against it. I just kind of see the other side of it a little bit, in that ultimately these employers are really just trying to have a place where they can do business, and a personal choice that makes that no longer an option for any reason is tricky to regulate without infringing on personal freedoms. And so, yeah, like you said, very controversial, but it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out over the next couple of months.
Hey, Charlie, you brought up an absolutely perfect example: cigarette smokers. And I'm not a smoker, never been a smoker, couldn't stand going into a bar and having it be a smoky bar. But, what I said at the time, smokers were very easy to pick on, because at that time, probably maybe 25% to a third of the nation smoked. So every one of these initiatives, they were in a minority position. So everybody thought it was great. Let's beat up on the smokers. And I guess it's great now. You can go into a bar. You don't have these smoky bars. But I guess I'm just at that point where I really don't like this whole way that we're going, where everybody is in everybody else's business. To my thought, if you want to be a smoking bar or a smoking restaurant, more power to you. If you don't want to go in there and smell cigarette smoke, then don't go to that bar. If you want to be a smoke-free bar, that should be up to the individual bar owners, and then you make a decision, an informed decision. If you don't want to go there, and you really saw it with smoking. That started very small, and then it caught wildfire, and then before you know it, you couldn't smoke anywhere. Companies were sending you 100 yards down the road if you wanted to smoke a cigarette. To me, it's a little bit overboard, but they were a very easy target. And that's just kind of, it goes back to that old adage, at some point they're going to run out of minority people to pick on and kick out and easy to single out. And pretty soon there's going to be nobody to defend your individual rights.
I have a late breaking news update that somewhat related to the question that you were asking, Jack, about, are we going to see any kind of class action? So apparently in the higher education world, there are 670 colleges that have basically told students that they have to be vaccinated in order to go to class come fall term or fall semester. And this Indiana state has this rule, and 8 students from Indiana University, 8 students from Indiana University challenged this policy. It went to federal court, and they upheld the university's position that they could have a vaccine mandate. And this article just came out last night that I'm looking at, that this went to the Supreme Court, and they've refused to block the university from having the mandate as well. So it's not an employer, but it is an organization requiring making a vaccine mandate for students to participate fully in kind of in-person class, the in-person class experience. And it's gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and it said this is the first case of a vaccine mandate being heard by the Supreme Court at this point. And so at this point, the Supreme Court has refused to block the vaccine mandate. Interesting.
So now you go to college, you spend 30, 40, 50 grand, and then now they can make you get a vaccination. Interesting. We'll have to see how that one plays out. But yeah, you're right. If that's the first one out of the blocks, kind of sets a precedence, an uphill battle from there. Hey, Charlie, do you have another article for us this week?
I'll tell you what, you think that's bad news. Wait till you hear this. In CBS News, Taco Bell's menu has been hit by a nationwide shortage of ingredients, if you can believe it. And so basically, there's an apology that they've offered up on their website with a big orange banner that says, sorry, if we can't feed your current crave due to national ingredient shortages and delivery delays, we may be out of some items. And there's been a bunch of complaints on social media about a lack of beef, lack of chicken, lack of hot sauce, and a lack of the 10-inch tortillas that they use. At nearly 7,500 different Taco Bells are experiencing this issue. And a lot of them didn't even have lettuce or tomato. So you would go get like a taco and you would just get this like shell with black beans in it. And they would try to call you that food. And, Taco Bell was already questionable to be called food in the first place, let alone when you take out all the real fresh ingredients. And so I just thought it was interesting because, I guess what I'm thinking out loud here is we may start seeing a trend form of restaurants or food chains moving towards more, I don't want to say sustainable, that's not the right word, but basically ingredients that have a better shelf life and cannot be, don't have to be as fresh. And then, so that's kind of my first thing. Do you think we'll start seeing changes in the food that's available because of this? And then my second thought is, if you're Taco Bell or really just any business facing a supply chain shortage, if you're super sure that you're going to have issues with the beef market, I guess it makes me wonder if Taco Bell as a company should be taking an investment strategy that is basically built around that issue. And one way would be like to look into derivative against beef related commodities or something like that. But there could be other approaches too. And I guess what I'm wondering is, do you think that Taco Bell should be taking these types of measures? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I don't think that the case for going to Taco Bell revolves around the lettuce and the tomatoes for me personally. So I think that to your point on a restaurant looking for ingredients that have long shelf life, I think Taco Bell should be at the forefront of exploring that issue. And I have to admit that I kind of like Taco Bell. So the red line for me isn't the lettuce or tomatoes, it's the hot sauce. I mean, if there's no hot sauce, then that's it, right? That is not acceptable, because that would be one of the primary reasons for me going to Taco Bell. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Yeah,
it's interesting. It almost reminds me of something I posted on LinkedIn this week where, it's like, okay, great. I don't get hot sauce. I don't get tomatoes, and I don't get lettuce. What's my price reduction for this lame ass taco that I'm now going to have to eat? So, in the thing I posted on LinkedIn, it had somebody had a beautifully carved horse on a stairwell, and it was when the client asked you if you can do it cheaper, and somebody hangs a plastic horse over the railing instead. So it's like, yeah, that's great, guys. I mean, you can't. I ordered to me, a taco without hot sauce, tomatoes, lettuce, it's not a taco. I might still eat it, but, what's my price reduction going to be? And, this is kind of funny. I mean, I worked for somebody that was a distributor for McDonald's, and McDonald's really has this down. McDonald's understands how prone they are to, and they have, their supply chain with beef all lined up, prices set. It's with if you're Taco Bell and you're that big, I mean, shame on you if you haven't lined that up. But yeah, I like I say, I just, it's great. I mean, that's great. You go into these places and you're getting half of what you ordered. That's fine. I mean, what's my price reduction going to look like?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it just takes everything that you would go there for and takes it out of the equation. What is there left to pay for at that point? So yeah, it's very silly. We'll see how it all plays out, but get scared because it's coming. All right. Do you have another article we can talk about, Jack?
Actually, I have a perfect article that follows up with that one. This one comes from the Wall Street Journal, and it's talking about because of the Delta variant, it's starting to upset supply chains, people going back into the office. Companies thought they had a plan set out for, when they were going to get back to normal, as I'll say. I'll do the Dr. Evil thing there with the air quotes. But, what's normal going to look like now that we've got this Delta variant? You've got shortages everywhere. And it comes back to people going into the office now. I'd make the argument a lot of times. I still think this is just one of these old habits that's dying very hard. I think people over the last 15 months have really proven that you can work extremely effectively remotely. There's really not a compelling reason to go into the office for all of these jobs. But, I think, further, let's think of our entertainment industries, because they also talk about canceling events. I know there was a concert that I had tickets for originally for May of 2020 that became September of 2020, which became May of 2021, which is now currently October of this year. So don't know if it's going to happen or not. But again, I think another disruption right now. I don't know that we're on that firm of footing. we've talked about it a million times on this podcast about all these different stimulus programs that maybe artificially, propping up this economy, but at some point, things got to be open and things got to be revving up on their own. What was the take you guys had on this article?
Well, this thing really hits home for me because, for our audience, hopefully knows that we have a CFO advisory and outsourced accounting business that we do in our day jobs when we're not talking news here online, and in that business, while we have gotten to be remote and we're trying to branch out and develop client relationships remotely and digitally and online as much as possible, historically, what return to normal for me is meeting with network contacts, other accountants, lawyers, bankers, potential clients for lunch and for happy hour. And in the last 6 weeks, I've been trying to make up for lost time, doing that, a daily basis. I mean, poor me, you're that smallest violin. You can feel bad for me for the fact that I've had to spend every day going to lunch and happy hours nonstop, and it's just wearing me out, right? But seriously, on this point is that, I've scheduled out the rest of my summer to do this, at scale to make up for lost time, so to speak. Exactly that. And now with everything that's going on, I'm confused. I'm pausing and saying, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I need to stop and quit doing that. Not only, I'm fully vaccinated. There's my own personal health piece of it, but there's also the am I making my network uncomfortable by inviting them to things piece of it as well, right? And so I feel this article deeply in the sense of I don't feel like I feel like I have to kind of hit the pause button, and I'm not able to return to normal given some of what's going on. And so I'm watching it on a daily basis and thinking about it on a daily basis about what can I do, what can't I do, what should I do, what shouldn't I do. So I think that's the biggest problem, is that it's not clear cut that we're open and that business is normal, especially for us here in Oregon, for example, where they've just reinstated a mask mandate starting as of the day we're recording this. And how long will that go, right? So yeah, I sit here confused.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I've tried to be optimistic throughout this whole thing, but it just seems like, ever since these changes came into place, they've not really gone anywhere. Every time we try to get back to normal, it seems like we take one step forward, two steps back. And I remember, growing up, there was all these like smaller pandemics, we'll call them, but they didn't get quite the news that this got. And so when this first started happening, one of the first things I did is I went to Wikipedia and actually tried to read the history of like plagues, tried to like understand what actually happens in society when this type of plague or pandemic or some major issue like this comes up. And one of the things that I was like really surprised to learn is that so many of them come back like 100 years later. Like the bubonic plague would come out and then 100 years go by, and then it would resurge. And so, of course, that's a different virus, that's a different time, and there's a lot of changes. But this idea that it might be a long problem that we're kind of all working through, I feel like I've been coming to terms with ever since. And so I'm not that surprised to see it play out this way, but it is sad and it is difficult to go back to normal or feel like you can when all this is happening. So yeah, I try to be as positive as I can about it, but one step forward, two steps back seems to be the mantra.
And again, I think we talked about this a week or two ago about they don't do themselves any favors with the communication. Go get vaccinated. All your troubles will be gone. You'll be able to go out. You'll be able to, mix with and all of a sudden, now the Delta variant. And I don't know if you guys have heard this or not. There's another variant beyond. So in the Delta variant, they get over that. There's the Lambda variant. So, and I saw on Facebook, there's they had Butthead with his shirt up over his head. It was the Cornholio variant, I think. So, they're just going to keep coming up with these things, guys. at some point, we've got to try and get back to normal. So, it's just going to be one more thing. But they certainly have not done themselves any favors with the messaging on this, time will tell. I think the other anomaly to this whole thing has been, calling it a vaccine. You're not inoculated, right? I mean, you could still get this thing. So, like when you think about when we were kids, measles, polio, you were inoculated. You were never going to get that again. Chicken, I think, I'm old enough to where I did get chicken pox, and then everybody in the house got chicken pox. But kids now they're inoculated. They don't get chicken pox. So. That's the other thing. I think they've made a mistake on this messaging where, it was never an inoculation. It was a vaccination, and it was supposed to cut down your odds, and it was supposed to minimize the effects of getting this. But again, I think it goes back to the messaging where they're trying to walk this fine line, and they don't seem to be able to make anybody happy with the message. Charlie, what you got another one for us this week?
Well, as the world is going to shit, so to speak, we've got maybe another answer in the works here. In Vice.com, there was an article called "A Brainless Blob That Can Think is Being Sent to Space to See What Happens." And so, it's not directly related to the coronavirus, but it's like basically scientists are sending this blob up. They're going to feed it its favorite food, which is oats, and they're going to observe microgravity's effect on its exploration, behavior, and growth. And this blob has a name. It's not just blob. It's Physarum polycephalum. And, it basically has a bunch of interest to scientists because they can use it to study cognition and to study behavior and how different things affect it. The article also talked about how one of the big objectives of the project is to spur interest in young children about this type of experiment. And so they've said that for that reason, it's been a great success. I mainly just thought it was interesting because, it reads like it's out of a sci-fi novel, and you generally only hear about these things in, government spending reports where they're spending money for seemingly no reason. So I guess what I'm wondering is if they come back with some kind of interesting finding as a result of sending this blob into space, do you think that we're going to start seeing a change to where companies are going to start investing in this type of research, or will it stay as this like science fiction thing that only NASA would dare consider? What do you guys think?
Well, I think to your question directly, I mean, it always depends on the potential commercialization of the answers that come back, right? So as long as the commercial possibilities are unknown or kind of somewhat far out compared to just general knowledge, I think this continues to be the purview of government. I think it's a NASA thing, and I think, I think there are things worth pursuing and exploring as a society that are not commercially viable in the short run. So I think that is, there is some role for government there. But on the industry or company side, I think, my cynical view is that we in the corporate world pursue anything that is commercially viable in the short run.
I think that's absolutely true. And we talked about this a little bit with the, these gazillionaires, blasting things off into space. And like kind of, we said, wink, wink, NASA's kind of involved in that one way, shape or form. And you're right. Just the expenditure to make this commercially viable in the short run is not there. So you're not going to really see these, you're not going to see private industry make an investment in something like that. And I think we behind the scenes, NASA is going to be involved in all these things, but it's really kind of funny because I think we were talking before we even started recording. We were talking about 50 sci-fi movies, and it's just hysterical to watch some of those things. In the year 1998, we'll be exploring Jupiter, and they've got they had greater expectations for us than we did. But it's kind of funny. We haven't done a whole heck of a lot here. We do quietly. I mean, we're sending out probes and we're getting pictures of some of the more distant planets and that. But according to 1950 sci-fi, we're probably behind where our expectations would have been.
Yeah, I want to know where the hell my hoverboard is. I mean, we've been waiting for that for God knows how long, and it ain't coming. So I'm with you. I think you got a good point. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for our show. This has been the None of Our Businesses YouTube show and podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Tune in again next week for more business updates from an accountant's perspective. And also check out our sister podcast, Profitless on Purpose, where they discuss anything and everything relating to the nonprofit space. All right, thanks, everybody.